there, it's Pamela Simons from Remax Condos Plus, and today I wanted to actually talk to you about goal setting and reaching your goals. The fascinating thing about goal setting is that it requires a couple of steps before you achieve success. So I always like to talk about planning, investing, and profiting from real estate. So if your goals include that, stick around. Let's have a conversation. So I always think of four ways in which you can invest in real estate. And some of these things are quite obvious, and others may not be quite as obvious. So the first thing that you could consider is buying a home. Now, buying a home is not necessarily an investment, but let's face it, we all need a roof over our heads. So it does make a lot of sense to consider a home. The other element of buying a home is that there's some tax benefits. It's tax sheltered. When you decide to sell that property, it's tax sheltered. You won't be paying capital gains on it. So that is one good area to consider, but it's not the only ones. Now, say you're thinking, oh, I don't have that much money. Another option to buying real estate is to buy a REIT. Now, I don't sell investment products like that, so you can go ahead and reach out to a financial institution like your bank or an investment advisor to talk to them about those opportunities. But it is something and a way to partake in buying into real estate. The other method, which is one that I'm a strong fan of, is buying a condo. That's a single door, one door. The reason I like condos as an investment is they're easy to buy and they're easy to manage. And they're also easy when you're ready to sell. So for me, the condo is not just about the lifestyle, but it's also about the ease of ownership. So I do like that. And this investment seminar is going to talk a little bit more about the potential of buying condos. I currently, hubby and I, we own 7 properties and they're all condos in various areas. So I'm going to talk a little bit about diversification, but let's keep going. The other thing that you could do is buy a pure investment property. And a pure investment property could be a multi dwelling unit or it could be a pre construction property as well. So there's just a couple of options when it comes to that purest attitude of buying something that's strictly for investment purposes. So, my next question is, what is your goal? So, when you're thinking about your goal, you really want to ask yourself a couple of questions. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? Are you looking for something where you're thinking down the road? When I first started in real estate, my goal was I wanted to have some pension plans organized for myself. So, I considered my real estate as pension plan 1 and pension plan 2, which were my first 2 properties that I bought outside of my home. The next question you want to ask is, what is your time horizon? If you're looking for something quick, real estate may not be the investment vehicle that you want. If you're thinking in terms of down the road, long term elements, then real estate may just be what you're looking for. So you want to think in terms of long term or something else. If it's something else, maybe real estate is not for you. If it's something else, go back to my other slide where we talked about REITs, or perhaps there's another vehicle for you to invest in. The next is when you think about the type of goal, you really want to think of long term and short term. So, if you're thinking short term, you may want to think about an investment vehicle like a GIC or a REIT or some other option where that investment can be bought and sold very rapidly, very quickly, and it's not locked in the same capacity. If you're thinking long term, then you want to think far reaching. So I think in terms of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years. The reason I go all the way out to 30 years is because most mortgages are amortized over 30 years. So in a 30-year time frame, that property could be paid off. And in the meanwhile, I'm enjoying a lot of growth with regards to owning the property. And perhaps all I did was put in my initial investment, maybe some tenant turnover expenses, but for the most part, that property is growing and achieving great results. And I don't really have to worry about it too much until it comes time to sell my properties. So when you're thinking about managing a goal, you want to think about what it will give you in terms of your personal life. So, managing a goal like real estate, because it is fairly passive, it can be totally passive too if you want. There are some great property management companies that can help with organizing tenant turnover, maintenance of your unit so that it could be totally hands off if that's what you like. If, especially if you're talking about purchasing a property that's perhaps a little bit farther than a car ride away, then you may want to consider what are those other professionals that could help you in terms of making sure that you have everything that you need. So, managing your goal, uh, all areas of return. It should give you time, it should give you monetary rewards, but you want to think in terms of other aspects besides just, I'm buying this one property for the purpose of renting it out. What does that mean to you in the long run? So, what I did, and I'm one of those investor purists, so I decided to buy property with the attitude that I was planning to keep it. So, I always, as part of my wealth plan, I will buy, I will hold, I will lease, and I will grow my portfolio. As I mentioned, I started with one property, expanded that to three, and now my significant other and I, we've purchased some together. We live in our home in downtown Toronto, and we've got a diversified portfolio that includes properties in Calgary. Although it's just one now, I am a big fan of perhaps looking into buying more. And we also bought one in Hamilton, again, thinking, what can we do in the Toronto area, the greater Toronto area that might make sense? So you want to kind of hedge your investments so that you're not just buying in one place. As well, prices change. So Toronto had huge growth in 2007. Most of the properties that we bought, we purchased in 20, I'm trying to remember back, 2012, 2013, 2014. And at that time, you could get properties for a very good price. Now I know those same properties are more than double in the value. The value doesn't necessarily make a heck of a lot of difference until I go to refinance the properties. It is just that I like to calculate the value in terms of my total wealth when it comes to buying real estate as an investor. So that is my plan. I'm a buy hold person when it comes to investing. So again, that's part of my long-term focus. So Toronto versus the world. Yes, I live in Toronto. I work in Toronto. I'm a realtor here in Toronto. However, we all know that Toronto's very expensive, and it may end up being that Toronto no longer is the place where you would be comfortable in terms of purchasing property because the price to get in is very high. And so you still want to buy investment property, but you're thinking, what else can I do? Toronto, by the way, even if you put 20% down nowadays, it's going to be negative cash flow. And so, with that negative cash flow, you may have a strategy where negative cash flow works for you. Maybe you're looking for some write offs when it comes to income tax and thinking, well, that strategy will work for me for a little while, and I'll wait for the market growth in order to get my money back when I sell the property. That's a fine strategy. Again, speak to your tax accountant about what makes the most sense for you. Uh, it may not necessarily be that Toronto is the place where you're going to feel comfortable. You may even be saying, I could go a 2 hour drive outside the city because I work remotely for the most part or hybrid, and I'm able to telecommute versus having to physically come in every day. So you do have some options, which is great. Again, we're talking more investment rather than home. But when it comes to investments, if you live outside the city, maybe again, that short drive away to your investment property is still an hour and a half or an hour away. But you're getting that much further outside of Toronto where prices may be a little bit more flexible. I have a great example. And this first example, I bought this one. So I bought a one bedroom and den. And at the time, it was 279. I know you're thinking those prices don't exist today. And that's true, they don't. Everything goes up. So the sooner you get in, the sooner you can achieve that growth as well. So I bought a one bedroom and den. It came with a leasing program, which I also took advantage of. And although the interest rates from when I originally purchased to when I closed on the property changed, I'm no longer achieving the cash flow positive that I was anticipating. But I'm still pretty much breaking even on the property, plus or minus a few dollars. And that's, again, taxes are in, condo fees are in, the tenant pays the utilities, so I don't have to worry about that. So it's all done. And I took the property management program for that property that I bought. Many of the Calgary projects do have built in property management programs, which is great. It means set it, forget it, put your down payment in, and that's it, walk away. It's being managed, which is quite nice compared to something in Toronto. And something in Toronto, a similar type property, might cost significantly more, as you can see in this example on this slide, significantly more. And the carrying costs versus the leasing cost, there's a big deficit. And for some of you, you're thinking, I can't deal with that deficit, but I still want to buy real estate. So consider, I'm like you. I had choices and I decided to venture out a little bit further. Now I'm looking for my next one, by the way. So you may want to join me as I look at additional properties. So, what's next? What's next? How can you get more information? How can you potentially look at real estate and consider some opportunities that are available to you? Well, I have a great idea. And my idea is connect with me. So I'm going to link you to my website where you can also have a look at some of my posts on why Calgary, Alberta is a great place to consider your investment portfolio and growing it. And I would like to partner up with my colleagues at Wealth Builders who will help us conduct a session and teach you a little bit more about a new project that's being launched. So I'm going to be hosting that session on a fairly regular basis. So if you don't join me today, you'll be able to join me another day. But by all means, just follow through on the link that I'll post below on this video. So, my question for you as we close off this session, do you want to enjoy life with wealth? And if you do, let's get started with investing 1 hour of your time to learn how. All right, people, it was nice to chat with you and see you again. And I'll see you in that 1 hour session on our next meeting. All right, take care, everybody.